And then it's the title of your book, what the
It's
heart
the heart.
the heart of resilience, nurturing your inner strength for a joyful life. Hi, Mary. I'm so looking forward to our talk today.
So nice to be here with you, Sanj. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, and to our listeners, meet Mary McCoy Thompson, who is Executive Director of Dovetail Learning in Bay Area, California. And Dovetail Learning is a nonprofit organization committed to empowering people by helping them harness the power of their resilience. Right? Is that right, Mary? Did
Oh
I say it
yes,
correct?
that everything is correct. Yeah,
Yeah, I want to know about your journey, Mary. What is your story?
sure. Um, so my personal mission has always been, as long as I can remember, to help empower others to live their best lives. And so I did that journey by working in nonprofits my whole career in education, healthcare, family support, etc. And I had the good fortune of being able to do that in many places. We lived in West Africa, India, China, different places in the US, including California, where I live now. And in
Okay.
everywhere I worked and every place, I saw people who benefited from what we were trying to do, and others whom it didn't really stick and was not enough to lift them up. And when I was looking at all this, I kept trying to figure out what was the key? What could make the biggest difference in people's lives? Was it education? Was it healthcare? And eventually I realized it actually had to come from inside people themselves. While all the supports we provided could help, the big thing had to come from inside of people. And we call that underappreciated thing, we call it resilience. And that
Okay.
resilience, I realized, was a force multiplier that could change whatever else was happening into something so much greater. And that's when I became really interested in trying to help people strengthen their resilience.
Okay. So this was how many? This was like approximately the timeline. If you tell me about 10 years ago,
Yes.
something like that.
Well,
Okay.
no, I started working for Dovetail 6 years ago. So that's when I
Okay.
really understood resilience, right? And I had, like I said, I worked in many different types of organizations, lived in many places, and it was a great career. I really loved it, but I didn't understand the power and the importance of transforming people from the inside out and how
Okay.
that alone would make all the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and if we hadn't talked before, I wouldn't have known that too. I think
Yeah.
it's like we always think like, oh, you know, maybe, we all try, but it doesn't work. Like we don't know that we have so much power within us, right?
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's one of the reasons we call our approach We Are Resilient, because when we want to acknowledge it and celebrate that all of us have resilience in us already, but we also want to celebrate and the fact that we can strengthen our resilience with intention. There are resilience skills and mindsets that can be learned, and we can become better at them.
Okay. So the tools that you provide, I was looking at the website dovetail.org, and there's all these resources that are provided to educators, to health professionals, even to like people who are working together as teams, right?
Hmm.
Families also. So
Yeah.
these all these resources are free of cost,
Yes,
right?
yes. So all of our training resources, all of our videos, our books, they're all down. You can download them for free and use them. Our latest book that's story led is not, because it's more of a popular book filled with stories, and it's not
Okay.
a training resource. But the training resources anyone can download, and we've had, of course, thousands of people download them and use them, and we get feedback from all over the country. I have a friend who I hadn't seen in 40 years, and I was meeting her at a reunion, and she said, "You have the best resources. I'm using them at my school in Montana, and it's made such a difference for my students and my teachers. Thank you so much for providing stuff for free." And it was such a
Yeah.
delight to just know the ripple effect that our work is having.
So you call them SEL resources, right? So
Yeah,
social.
social. Yeah, social emotional learning. So social emotional
Okay.
learning is the term that a lot of educators know. So
Hmm.
that's part of what we do. And then resilience kind of is a broader term that people are more familiar with, though we define it as in a broader way than most people are familiar with. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, if you realize this before, and then you when you joined Dovetail, you saw that was a perfect match, right?
Yeah, I was really excited about when I learned about the organization and what they were doing. I said, this is what I've been looking for. These people are doing
Okay.
work that's really important and it will make a difference. And I love working with fabulous organizations that are making a difference. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, and then I also read online that these resources are modifiable, is that adaptable, right? Like you can modify
Absolutely.
them a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, because we one of the things a lot of times with this work, people sort of learn a method or they learn something how to do it, but it doesn't quite work for their community or their organization, and maybe they want to use part of it, and it's like first of all, most things are copyrighted. Almost everything is a copyright, and we have a Creative Commons license so that people can download this stuff for free and change it. Because we also
Yeah.
feel like the human beings are different, and we want to meet the needs of all the people that we can, and that's why we
Hmm.
let things change, adapted, and for free. And we only ask that people give attribution to our work when they do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's important. Okay. So it does. I can already sense it. Like it helps when you understand uh, the environment around you and what's causing uh, your behavior, right? Anyone has like a behavior trait, right? We all, even in the same family, you can see people behave differently to different circumstance, right?
That's right. That's right. So
Yeah.
we call those things patterns, right?
Mm.
And we call them protective patterns is one type of pattern. And that's a pattern that we adopt when we might feel a little bit vulnerable or a little bit unsafe. And they're things like avoiding or maybe attacking or defending. Those are things that we do when we feel a little bit unsafe. And they can help protect us. So they can be good, but they also can get in our way. And so when we pay attention to those things and say, oh my goodness, that's not actually helping. My husband asked me a simple IT question and I'm lashing out at him. I'm like, well, that's not
Mm.
helping our relationship. I need to pay attention to that. So those are patterns that are often learned in families, but people will have very different ones. And so paying attention to what's working and not working is one of the main things when people do when they take our training and learn about our approach. They learn to notice themselves better and figure out what's working and what's not working. The other kind of pattern that we talk about is our cultural patterns. Those are stories or ways of behavior that are passed down in families and communities, and they're affected by everything from our ethnicity to our religion to our socioeconomics, just and also just to individual families. And those patterns are also unique to us. And they are also something we can think about. Is that helping me to have that belief about the world, or is that hurting me? Just like protective patterns, cultural patterns help us. They help us find a place that we belong and feel safe and people we celebrate with, and they give us so much joy. But they also can block us so that we don't understand other people and we think people are wrong or bad when they just have a different cultural pattern from us. And understanding all of those things help us have empathy. Developing empathy and becoming more connected to each other is deeply wired within us. It's a human trait that we all want to do, is be connected with each other. So having that stronger is one of the types of resilience we really try to help teach people with. Yeah.
Okay, I was also looking at the meaning of dovetail because I was very curious and it's about it, and I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense that if you harness your resilience, like you can work together with people in a harmonious way, right? Whether it's a
Ex-
family unit, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. We talk about that group resilience and relational resilience exactly because we're joined together in a better way, and we understand that's why we're dovetail learning, because we learn these kinds of things and then everything we do is better. That's why we call it a force multiplier, because everything becomes better.
Okay. And there is a lot of scientific research done, right? On this, like,
Absolutely. All of our skills are based on scientific research. And if you download a lot of our books, they have pages that explain the research behind every skill. So, and a lot of these are things that you might be doing already. For instance, breathing. A lot of people have breathing techniques or things that they practice already, or maybe gratitude. Many people have gratitude practices. But for us,
yeah.
we find the more intentional we can be about these practices, the more we can become centered in ourselves and more effective and more grounded.
Hmm. I was also reading on the website about this, the new book that you wrote, you and
Mhm.
one of your colleagues, right? So, what motivated you to write the book? Because you had all these resources, but you went ahead and spent so much time in
We
creating another
did.
resource, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we did. It was like an hour, a year and a half of work with my
Mm.
colleague Chuck Fisher. And um, one of the reasons we wrote it is because we knew that not everybody was going to be able to take our trainings. We knew our trainings were really powerful and a lot of people got a lot out of them. But, life intervenes and many people can't do it. And we also know that this work is best absorbed over time. So if people have a book, they can kind of learn one mindset or one skill and practice it and then go back to it at their own leisure. They can learn one type of pattern. So that was one
Yeah.
reason. And then another reason we wrote the book is that we've trained thousands of people in this approach. So many of them have been transformed by it. And people were delighted to share stories with us about how it was working in their life or the struggles that they were having. And so we could include those stories in the book. We know people learn through stories. That's how we're wired to learn,
Yeah.
and it helps everyone feel more normal. When I found out that one of my friends also lashed out at things her husband was saying, it's like, oh, okay, maybe it's not the best part of me, but it's normal to do that, and it helps me be feel less shame about it, and then I can approach it with more kindness, and then I'm actually probably more successful at doing it less when I'm not so harsh with myself, but I'm like, oh, okay, not the best. Let's see what I can do better next time. Yeah.
Mhm. So the communication with the family members, with friends, everything improves because now you're more, you are, you know, you're analyzing it throughout, right? Like any
Absolutely.
conversation you have, you're thinking about it, right?
Yeah, yeah, you notice your patterns, you notice other people's patterns. You're able to be more empathetic with yourself and with other people. You're able to use heartfelt listening and listen at a deeper level. Yeah, and that's why it makes such a big difference. That's why I love also doing training over time because I hear stories every week about how people are changed. Maybe they've
Yeah.
talked to their boss the way they hadn't talked to the boss before, and the boss now understands their challenges in a way that they weren't able to explain before. Maybe they had an argument with their husband last week, and then this week they're able to come and say, "Oh, I can do it differently," or their best friend. So many
Hmm.
stories that I've heard, and those are the kind of stories we were inspired to include in the book. So that was fun. It's one of the reasons we wrote
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And I like there has to be different ways because everybody learns differently. So this is one way of, like, there's or reading online or reading on paper, but in a story format, I think we, at least, I also find it. We always, even when we were growing up, our grandparents used to tell us stories, right? And the story always
Absolutely.
had a message, right? So,
Yes, that's exactly right.
so that's how
That's what
we
these
learn.
stories are. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so that makes,
one person read it and they're like, "Oh, this is like chicken soup for the soul, but maybe combined with
mm,
chicken Stephen Covey's 7 Habits for the Highly Effective People," because it's
yeah.
stories, but it helps give you a framework for improving yourself along the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the skill set is provided, or you, to
Yes.
improve your skill set to deal with situations in the future, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Like feeling not ashamed of, like, your behavior patterns, right? Like, oh, it's okay. It's normal. Nothing wrong with it. Maybe I can do better than this, right? Is that?
That's exactly right. Yeah, and it's super helpful to have that perspective, like, "Oh, look what this person's doing." I had a friend who read the book and she said, "Oh, my husband and I have the same pattern as this couple that was in the book, and I can
Mhm.
see what I'm doing, and now maybe I'm gonna try to do it a little bit less so we don't argue around that anymore." So I was like, "Yeah,
Mhm.
that's
So
exactly right." It was fun to hear that story.
yeah, no, it's encouraging. And so if anyone wants to read the book, buy the book, do they go to the website? Is that It's the best
Yes,
way.
it's dovetaillearning.org. Yes, and we have a page on the website. You can do a pre-order. The book's actually not going to be launched until August 15th, but at
Okay.
that time we'll have deliveries of both the ebooks and you can buy paperback and color, or black and white. The reason we have color is just we have a lot of icons and other things that make it easier to remember the kinds of things that we're talking
Yeah.
about, and those are all in color. So some
Mm.
people like the book in color.
Yeah. And you can read it on, like, in a plane, you can read it wherever you are, right? You can be sitting on the
Absolutely. And
sofa and reading it. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people are going to want to read one chapter and then do something else and kind of and practice those skills or the mindsets that are in that chapter, and then think about it and then read another chapter in another week. It's great for book clubs for people to do it that way, to practice the skills over time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's really nice that way.
Yeah. Like one thing at a time, not everything together, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's how we do our trainings, right? So we like to do trainings like our shortest well, we have some introductory trainings that just give you a high overview, but we know it's more impactful, like having an hour or 90 minutes a week when people are kind of learning with each other and sharing stories with each other. So that's the kind of training that's been most fun to do, because then we hear people share with each other all the changes that they've been making and how it's working for them.
And the reflections and the conversations about it, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
I feel like when you discuss stuff, you remember it more. The
Exactly.
brainstorming sessions, right?
That's right.
Um,
Well, and it's
yeah.
just you're practicing what you're learning, and then you're sharing how that's going, and then the other people in the group can give ideas, or just even hearing it helps you
Mm.
reinforce, as you said, right? So that's one thing we like to do in our trainings. But that's also, you can do that in the book. There's reflection questions in the book. You can do it on your own with a companion,
Okay.
just the journal. Yeah.
All right. And then, every so what age group? There's all these trainings on the website and also the book for. Is there like an age group that should read it, or it doesn't matter?
No. So, I'll just start with teens. We have stuff for students, and we have stuff for high school teachers and middle school teachers. And we have those ideas are clean I've interviewed some of them for the book. And then all
Okay.
the way up to, people in their 80s are also included in their book. And I've had
Hmm.
them in trainings, and they've gotten a lot. It's just a reminder, we're never too old to learn and change our behavior, especially because then
Hmm.
we're all trying to become more authentic and become the people we want to be, right? And it feels so much
Yeah.
better to have a conversation in which the other person is hearing you and you're hearing the other person. Even if you disagree on things, you come out with a sense of resolve and comfortability with each other, and you're more connected. So it changes from sort of having your skin kind of prickly and kind of feeling all uptight about things to just being more centered and grounded in yourself. And those are the kind of
Yeah.
conversations we really love to have people have, because that's how we change the world and make it what we want it to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially nowadays, I feel like in a global society we are living in,
Yes.
even if we all have to understand each other, there's so much, cultural or social, everyone is different, right? Every family, every person is different, right?
Yeah,
So
which is
really helps. Yeah.
beautiful, right? It's beautiful, it's
Yeah.
wonderful. We can get so much from each other if we can feel grounded in those conversations, if we go in with a sense of empathy and with trying to understand each other. Um, for me, I feel like that's where we can get the solutions that our communities and our world needs, because everybody
Yeah.
brings a different piece of the puzzle. And to
Mm.
assume that any one of us knows it all is just missing out on most of the information that we need. But for people to
Mm.
come together and really being able to collaborate, that's why we have a whole set of collaborating and connecting skills, because that's how we
Mm.
transform the organizations and communities and families into being the type of groups that we really can thrive in and create solutions that are helpful for us.
Yeah. And I feel like, traits like, being a better patient listener for people, because I think
Yeah.
most of the people we generally, like, including, I've, family, myself, I've seen that, we try to conclude too fast, but quiet listening, and maybe the other person is saying something that it's all right, okay, also, right? Like, it's not, there's only not one solution to a problem, right? Maybe we are not
Absolutely.
thinking in that direction, like because we were brought up in a certain way and the other person has a different approach to the same problem, right?
One of the mindsets we teach is the resilient mindset of curiosity. And I'm a very curious person. I'm naturally a super curious. I love to learn about all sorts of things. And yet, there was a lot I realized I wasn't curious about. I wasn't curious enough about myself, about my judgments, my expectations. And I wasn't curious enough about other people's expectations and judgments to ask about those things in a way that got it to a deeper level. And just bringing that resilient mindset of curiosity, pausing those judgments and expectations to ask about things, it's transformative. Just that one thing can be transformative. The more
Mm.
curious it can be, and having less expectations and judgments and going in with an open mind on many things, it's amazing how that can change us and change the world and our communities.
So it's used by educators, it's used by health professionals, it's all these resources, right? And then
That's right.
and the resources are used by people like working in
Families,
tech, families. Okay.
grandparents, exactly. Tech people, high school students, family support people, business people, high tech executives. We have a huge range. Yeah. A lot of
Mm.
different people attend our trainings for all sorts of different reasons. And mostly, people want to be they want to become better versions of themselves, and they want to have a deeper relationships with those that they care about. I would say those are the deepest reasons that people join and
Yeah.
learn about our.
And I was curious about this, if like two people are talking and one person has done the training and the other person hasn't, it's still effective?
I
Is
would
it
say
still
that's the
effective?
most common situation, right? Because most of us, like maybe our family's not interested yet. And that's why we call practice model coach. We practice it ourselves. As soon as we practice it ourselves, it makes a difference for us. And then it starts making a difference in a relationship. Even if the other person has no idea, we can look at them differently. We can be more compassionate for ourselves and compassionate for them. We have a deeper level of heartfelt listening, etc. And it will
Mm.
change that relationship. And then we start modeling and people become curious. Wow, I noticed you're in a calmer place. I was just hearing this the other day. Somebody was telling me, oh, a doctor had done the training, and someone sat next to her and they said, you seem a lot happier the last few months. It's like, yeah,
Mm.
exactly. People notice when we become a better version of ourselves. And then they're
Yeah.
curious about that and want to know more. So,
Yeah, the positive vibes you're giving now because you're not the energy
mhm,
that you're
mhm,
giving is not the stressful one that I think it
exactly.
probably calms you down and also forgives people probably, right?
We have more
Yeah.
compassion for ourselves and for others. Yeah,
Yeah. Because I also feel like, because I talk to a lot of people, I feel like not everybody thinks the same. And there is no right or wrong. We all are right in our own ways. We all are
that's
wrong
right.
in our own ways also, So yeah, so so we could be wrong, right? Another person thinks they're also right. So now there's
That's
a
right.
problem, right?
Well,
So,
that's why we have cultural patterns and understanding,
yeah.
okay, this they think they're right because we one of our lines is that, every person has unique reasons for being exactly who they are. And
Hmm.
that's okay, right? And then just helping to understand that helps us have the conversation. And so we've moved beyond right and wrong to what can I
Yeah.
learn from you, right? What can I learn from you about myself and about other people and about the world?
Yeah. Mary, what do you think about what are the is social media affecting us? Is it increasing our resilience or is it?
Oh, well, our children, social media is a huge issue. It's a huge issue. There's no question it's damaging the mental health of our children. And there's a big movement after Babel. John Haidt is a writer in this field, and he is talking about how we need to ban phones in schools, and we need to
Hmm.
take the kind of action that we did to stop drunk driving that killed so many kids.
Yeah.
I know when I was growing up, drunk driving was a huge issue, and it's much less of an issue now, and
Yeah.
social media has replaced it. It's damaging our children. It's a big thing we need to fix, and
Hmm.
it's part of and part of the issue, Sanj, is that people aren't figuring out how to relate to each other. All the skills that we talk about, like that doesn't work if you're on your phone and nobody's actually interacting with each other,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So becoming our best versions of ourselves means putting down our phones and actually interacting with each other. It's actually better to have some conflict in our interactions and learning what that what that feels like and is like. One of
Yeah.
in fact, my teacher and daughter-in-law shared this beautiful words of wisdom that in a relationship, it's good that there's friction because it helps us become better people, right? If
Mm,
and that's down because AI, like if you just had a relationship with AI, they completely meld to who you are, but you don't
mm,
have that friction that can help you become a better person. And
yeah.
if people are on their phones and just doing social media, we're not learning, we're not growing socially, emotionally, or we're not strengthening our resilience. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because there is no end to it, right? Like, it's sometimes I feel like it's a necessary evil, like you need for knowledge or
right.
learning different things. But then there is no limit to the time that we are using it, right?
Well, and
If
that's what,
it's like anything, right? Like too
yeah,
much of walking can also harm your knees, right? I'm just saying.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
Moderation, right? But
moderation.
unfortunately,
Yes.
yeah, those are skills that are hard to teach to young people with an
Yeah.
unlimited supply, right? So
Yeah.
for me, we
So
need to at least take tools.
intervention, adult intervention, that even the adults, the parents also need to learn, like, especially,
Exactly,
we also have our phones, like, even if a friend texts, we don't, like, it's just a family
exactly,
time or those kind of things are important, right? So I think
exactly.
it needs to be universal phenomena that everyone has to know. And with trainings like this, I think we all need to understand that, yeah, it's important to be there instead of being in a virtual world, right? Where we're
The
not
best
actually
gift
meeting anybody. Yeah.
the best gift we can give each other is our presence, and
Yeah.
learning how to make that presence something valuable is a part of what we do in our work.
So, have you also seen, like, you know, trainings, all these does it help with the mental health of the, kids or older adults or younger adults? Does it?
Absolutely. We consider it preventative mental health, right? It boosts our emotional immune system, which is really
Okay.
important. We learn exercise, we learn nutrition, we learn all sorts of things to boost our physical immune system. And yet
Mhm.
we're not taught basic social emotional learning skills and resilience skills, which are so important to boost our emotional immune system. And by doing that, we have the strength to handle all the things that are coming at us and handle our relationships more effectively and our groups more effectively. So I would say
Okay.
it's fundamental for preventative mental health.
Okay, all right. And it should be an ongoing process because there's so many, so many things, right? So many issues, like different, conflicts or anything, different discussions we have, different relationships, right? With your kid, with your
Absolutely.
spouse, with your parent, with your friend.
Yeah,
Mm.
it can be helpful in all those things. Yeah, that's why it's in some ways it's hard to talk about sometimes because the answer almost always is like yes, yes, helpful there, yes. Because when we start within ourselves and make the changes within, then it impacts everything that we touch. All the
Mm.
relationships we have, all the things that we're trying to do in the world, whether it's our work, our school, our play, impacts everything. That's why it's so
Everything.
powerful, so important.
Mm.
Yeah.
Anything you want to tell the listeners, Mary, about anything that we missed in our
Yeah,
conversation today?
I think the main thing is just that resilience is something that can be strengthened with intention. There are skills and mindsets that we can learn, and that it's a lifelong journey. It's a part of
Mhm.
it is being compassionate with ourselves and trying. You can just try one small, we call them micro practices. You just try one small micro practice for a week and see how that feels. And then you can try another one. This is not like we're not asking you like to go live in an ashram. We're asking you to
Mm.
just add one 10-second thing to your life a day and see what difference that makes. And often it can
Okay.
make a lot of differences. So,
All right. So small changes are
exactly.
important, right? That's what gonna.
Really important. Yeah, really
Okay.
important.
Well, it was great talking to you, Mary. I think you're right in saying it's a journey, uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm definitely interested and, reading about it and making those small changes. And, as you said, we all have resilience in us, but to
Yes.
nurture it, to improve it, that's the goal, right?
So much the goal. Yeah. Exactly.
Mhm. And then it's the title of your book. What? Uh, the
It's
heart,
the heart.
the heart of resilience, nurturing your inner strength for a joyful life, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. We know we can all have a little more joy in our life, and that would be wonderful. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that's why we did that.
Well, great talking to you, Mary. Was
Great.
learned a lot. We're going to
Yeah.
meet again, and I'm going to
Yes.
probably look at some resources and maybe ask more specific questions about some things.
Yeah. So one of my questions for you, Sanj, is would you like me to send you I can send you the manuscript of the book right now if you want to, so you can peruse it before the next meeting. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's perfect. Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, so let's plan to meet again. And, I know we're going to need to learn, I'm going to need to learn more about this because I
Yeah.
feel like this is the bottom of a lot of, uh, this is like the foundation, right? Like
It is.
this
It's the
does, I
foundation.
don't know why we don't talk about it that much for some
Exactly.
reason, but it's not external, it's internal, right? So,
That's right. We
um,
call it underappreciated or secret foundation that people don't understand how much it impacts them and the world. Yep.
yeah, no, this is important and to improve things within ourselves, and obviously it's going to improve the society or the environment, everything, right? Everyone
Exactly.
becomes a happy person, it's going to affect everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Mary. It was great talking
You're
to you.
welcome.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
really nice. You take
Let's
care.
meet again. Yes. All right.
Bye bye.
Okay. Bye bye.
If you wanna talk about anything at all, then you know who to call. Just tell Sanjana. Tell Sanjana. Tell Sanjana. Tell Sanjana. Just tell Sanjana.